Oh, there it is. Now. That's it. That's what you get. That's the intro. I generally like to open my reviews with talking about the way the game looks, but in order to avoid getting ahead of myself, I found that it's best to show clips with not much gameplay happening. It's not a biggie when talking about well-established frameworks like a first-person shooter. From a slow panning environment shot, there is no way for you to extrapolate whether something plays more like a Rainbow Six, or a Call of Duty, or a Hour of Victory. Well, From Dust leaves a lot of questions from the very first glance, so let's quickly establish what it is and leave that tangent behind. It's a pseudo-puzzle physics sandbox where your goal is to help little guys get from point A to B. Now, From Dust is a first in line of deliberately small Ubisoft releases that they like to sprinkle 1 or 2 a year for a while. To be honest, they have a decent track record with those, but they have no intention of congratulating a quadruple A developer and publisher for making a decent indie. That being said, for a smaller scale project that had to comply not only with capabilities of 7th gen hardware, but also with size limit of their digital games, it looks okay. Environment-wise, there isn't much to look at. Everything is either sand, or rock, or lava, or water, but that's because of the dynamic nature of the, well, environment. Nothing could be too crazy or use custom assets for a map because you, the player, must be able to mess with it. It is the people that you guide through this world that are the vessels of game's art direction. They are very clearly inspired by Aboriginal Australian cultures, which shows in their clothing and the fact that almost all game sound effects are made with didgeridoo. And those little guys wear huge dream masks, which works nicely in 2 ways. Firstly, it makes them cute. Combined with a slight toyification effect, they leave the same impression as Pikmin or Settlers. Just look at this little guy, he is so proud of his stick. Secondly, it allows to keep the art style realistic. The little guy holding his stick is clearly a guy, a man made of flesh. Besides, they speak their own language, which I always appreciate, and the sculptures they erect have something very Chrono Tower or Angelarium about them. Not sure what though. Looking at contemporary reviews, I often see terms God simulation or God game. I do not like approaching From Dust from this angle, mostly because powers available to you would make a pretty fucking lame God, but also because it sets a set of expectations that From Dust has simply no interest of satisfying. In most God games, you are the omnipotent hand of a higher creature, and you get to guide some little guys towards prosperity, developing settlements, converting to your religion, stuff like that. And in From Dust you kinda do this, but also not at all. Each map can be finished in a matter of minutes because your only and ultimate goal is to guide a couple of tribesmen towards a quite literal exit. Before said exit can be accessed, however, a village must be built around usually 4 towers. Each one grants you access to an additional power that often is necessary for level completion. So yeah, you do build stuff, but your interaction with it ends at the build village button. The only developmental progress that you have any control over is the spread of vegetation that you can encourage by playing with water. But as it doesn't really help with anything, I wouldn't worry about it too much. You do not have any direct influence over your tribe's people. You cannot rain thunder or fling people or ask them to kill their son and stuff. You are more of a terrain remodeler, a master of the elements, but one fighting against them for the most part. Once you point people towards their next goal, it is your job to make sure they get there safe and sound. By beginning of each level, all you can do is lift up and drop material, meaning sand, water or lava, to construct bridges and platforms as well as mix them for desired effect. This system is what makes From Dust stick out so much. I have never seen a game with such dynamic and reactive environment. Loose sand settles down, water reshapes its surroundings, messing around with lava creates stone walls, and as the short campaign progresses your toolbox expands. Fire and water trees deploy their elements on their own, and strategic use of both is a must. Also, totems unlock abilities to turn water into jelly, lower the water level altogether, put out all fires and so on. All for a limited time, of course. I cannot overstate how enjoyable your almost godly powers are. Just messing around with flow of rivers is great fun, and it's clearly visible that the entire game is a collection of excuses to mess around with it for a bit. And the prize for this amazing system is the pathfinding of your village people. It's obvious that building an AI that not only can navigate through such dynamic maps, but also identify which path and when requires divine intervention is no small feat. Capabilities of the village folk are inconsistent. I have seen them climbing almost vertical walls as well as going the long way around to avoid the slightest of hills. But that is not what I want to complain about. Once a totem or exit is pointed towards, an expedition of usually 5 tribesmen is sent that way. And what brings my blood to a boil is that more often than not, within meters of their goal, the last 1 or 2 guys will decide that the perfectly flat ground surrounding it is not flat enough. I have spent more time appealing to primitive folks' unrealistic expectations of terrain geometry than I have spent playing the fucking game. From Dust is a maybe a few of a kind game, birthed from the same train of thought that gave us Peter Molyneux back when he had a soul, as well as Teardown, and I guess the Powder Toy. But it's also one that, when I think back on, brings back mostly frustration. So maybe play it, or maybe don't. Next time I'm gonna talk about a whole bunch of games. And until then, take care.